Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're watching this video right now, and that's not an accident. There's a reason your heart felt drawn to this message. Because deep down, you've been asking, when is it going to happen? And Allah is responding. Just not in the way you expected. You've been waiting for noise, for signs, for an explosion of blessings. But what if I told you? The silence you're experiencing isn't empty. It's sacred. It's strategic. And yes, it's full of movement. You see, sometimes when Allah is doing something big for you, He does it quietly. When a seed is planted, the roots grow in the dark, hidden beneath the soil. Oh, no applause. And that's what I did. But something is happening. And just because you don't hear the sound of change doesn't mean change isn't on its way. Allah doesn't need to make announcements. He makes decisions. And when He decides to move on your behalf, He doesn't need your commentary, your overthinking, or your doubts. He just needs your trust. And sometimes, your silence. Let's be real. We all have that moment where we want to speak on our own behalf. Complain. Defend ourselves. Explain our situation. Scream to the world, look at what I'm going through. But have you ever considered that maybe, just maybe, your voice is getting in the way of your victory? That the moment you open your mouth to vent, you're delaying the arrival of something that was already on its way? Look, we don't need to pretend we're okay. Life is tough. But what if I told you that your miracle is already in motion, and the only instruction left for you is to stay still and keep quiet? There's power in silence. It was in silence that Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam made his dua for a child. And when the news came that he would have Yahya alayhi salam, Allah told him not to speak for 3 days, not because something was wrong, but because something was right. It's almost funny when you think about it. We're so addicted to action, to drama, to doing. We think if we're not moving, nothing is happening. But in the divine system of Allah, stillness is not stagnation, it's strategy. While you're sitting there, wondering when things will change, the decree of Allah might already be on its way to you like a train through the night, silent but unstoppable. You've cried, you've begged, you've explained your case to the heavens. Now Allah is telling you, shh. It's already happening. Close your mouth. Watch what happens next. Don't let your tongue cancel what your patience already purchased. And let me slide in a little reminder. You don't have to make noise for angels to take notes. The heavens already heard your dua. The ink is dry, the plan is perfect. You just have to stay out of the way. And sometimes, staying out of the way means letting go of the need to be heard, seen, or validated. Because when Allah validates you, no one else's confirmation matters. So here's what I want you to think about for the rest of this video. What if this silence is not the absence of movement, but the confirmation of it? What if the quiet you're experiencing is not because nothing is happening, but because everything is? You're going to find out. But you'll need to be silent enough to hear it. Now, let's go deeper. Because the moment you understand how Allah works in the unseen, you'll stop fearing what's not visible. Have you ever noticed how some of the greatest miracles in history didn't begin with a bang, but with silence? They didn't start with a celebration, but with a whisper, or even less. Allah's most profound plans unfold quietly. Not because they're small, but because they are sacred. And sacred things don't need to scream to prove they're significant. Let's go back. Maryam alayhi salam, a young pious woman, alone, pregnant, carrying one of the greatest miracles ever known to mankind, Isa alayhi salam. But when the world questioned her, when they accused her, when they looked at her with suspicion, what was she told to do? Defend herself? Fight back? No. Allah told her to remain silent. If you see any human being, say, "Indeed, I have vowed a fast to the Most Merciful, so I will not speak today to any human being." Surah Maryam 19:26. She didn't have to speak, because the miracle was about to speak for itself. And that's exactly what Isa alayhi salam did. He spoke from the cradle. Allah didn't need her voice. He needed her obedience. Her silence was not weakness. It was the setup for divine intervention. Think about that. Sometimes, Allah silences you because He's about to let your miracle do the talking. And yet, we find ourselves today so uncomfortable in the quiet. We scroll, post, call, vent, overthink. We fear that if nothing is being said, then nothing is being done. But the reality is, when the world goes quiet, the heavens are often at work. You're just not hearing it, because you weren't meant to. Let's go to another scene. The Prophet in the cave of Hira, alone, not broadcasting, not announcing, not even asking for prophecy, just retreating in silence. And that's where revelation came. The most powerful words in human history, Iqra, came to a man in solitude, in silence. The Quran was not revealed in a stadium. It was revealed in the hush of a cave. So what makes you think Allah can't meet you in your quiet place? It's actually during the moments when everything seems paused, when du'as appear unanswered, and when movement feels distant, that Allah is building something you're not ready to see yet. Because here's the thing, some things are so heavy with barakah, so delicate with divine timing, that if you received them before you were ready, they would crush you. So Allah hides them, wraps them in silence, until your heart, your mind, and your soul can carry the blessing without breaking. And you, right now, might be in that exact stage. Now, let's not pretend it's easy. Waiting is not fun. Silence can feel like rejection. But I need you to hear this. Your silence isn't punishment. It's preparation. Your pause isn't failure. It's formation. Your delay isn't denial. It's divine design. Maybe you're thinking, but nothing is changing. What if that nothing is actually everything? What if your still season is the most productive season of your life? Spiritually, emotionally, and internally. And you just haven't recognized it yet. Let me break it to you gently. Allah doesn't operate on your timeline. He doesn't owe you an explanation. He doesn't need your understanding to unfold your destiny. He just needs your trust. And sometimes, you're quiet. Here's a perspective changer. You think you're stuck in silence, but maybe Allah is giving your miracle a head start, one you're not allowed to interfere with. And maybe your words, your doubts, your complaints, they would only distract it from arriving fully. So Allah says, shh, your miracle is not just coming, is already started. Right now, as you sit in stillness, your risk could be moving toward you. A decision could be forming in the heart of someone who will change your life. A door could be unlocking behind the curtain of the unseen. And your only job? Stay out of the way. Be still. Be silent. Let the one who knows the end from the beginning do what only he can do. Let's keep going. Because the moment you understand how silence becomes the companion of Tawakkul, your heart will stop needing noise to feel secure. There's a kind of strength that only grows in silence. A kind of strength that doesn't announce itself, doesn't need validation, and doesn't wait for applause. It's the strength that Allah builds inside you when the world has gone quiet, when no one is watching, and when even your own voice has gone still. It's the strength of the believer who understands that silence in the path of Allah is not absence, but presence. It's not inactivity, but deep, divine transformation. And for those who endure it with patience, It's often the signal that something immense is unfolding behind the scenes. Look at Ayub alayhi salam, a man of deep faith, tested beyond what most human beings could endure. His body broken, his family gone, his name forgotten, yet he remained silent in complaint. Not because he had nothing to say, but because his trust in Allah spoke louder than his suffering. His dua didn't come from a place of entitlement. It came from a heart that understood Allah doesn't abandon the ones who love Him. And when he finally did call out, it was only after years of quiet patience. Allah immediately responded. That's not a coincidence. That's a divine response to sacred silence. The world today teaches you to speak up, shout your truth, make your pain visible. And yes, there's a time for expression, a time to be heard. But in the realm of the unseen, there's a wisdom in keeping still. There's a moment when your silence is your loudest act of worship. Because you're not trusting your words to bring you relief, you're trusting your Lord. When Prophet Musa's mother placed her newborn in the river, she didn't scream. She let go in silence. The river didn't ask for permission, the water didn't announce its purpose. But it delivered him straight into the care of the Pharaoh's wife, the very place he needed to be. Allah orchestrated that, and He did it without a single sound. Sometimes, when life feels unbearably quiet, when your prayers seem unanswered and the waiting stretches longer than your patience, you begin to wonder if anything is actually happening. But the truth is, the quiet seasons are often the most active in the eyes of Allah. They are the moments He draws closest, when He rearranges everything for your future. When He hides you from harm, when He delays what you're not ready for and protects what is meant for you from being accessed too early. It's a strange thing, isn't it? The way silence makes us uncomfortable. The way we rush to fill the quiet with noise, even if that noise is just worry or overthinking or speaking just to feel like something is happening. But silence in the sight of Allah is not empty space. It's divine space. It's the ground where trust is planted and where miracles silently bloom. The kind of trust that doesn't demand updates from the heavens every 5 minutes. The kind that can sit in the stillness, breathe in the delay, and say, I don't see it yet, but I know it's on its way. It takes a special kind of iman to wait without speaking. Because we live in a time where people think silence means weakness. That if you're not talking, you've lost. If you're not reacting, you've surrendered. But Islam teaches us something different. It teaches us that restraint is power, that silence at the right moment is a form of sabr. And sabr is not passive, it's an act of worship, one of the most beloved to Allah. When you hold your tongue while your soul is screaming, when you lower your voice while your nafs wants to shout, you're not being weak, you're being obedient. And obedience, in silence, is one of the loudest ways you can say, Ya Allah, I trust you. When Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam was thrown in the well by his own brothers, he didn't cry out to the world. He was betrayed by those closest to him, abandoned in darkness, sold into slavery, imprisoned unjustly. And yet, you don't find long speeches or emotional breakdowns from him in the Quran. What you find is strength, dignity, submission. His silence wasn't because he didn't feel. It was because he knew that Allah was with him, knew that his pain was not unseen. And Allah took that silent trust and turned it into one of the most majestic stories of redemption ever told. He became a leader, a symbol of honor, the one who forgave those who tried to destroy him, all because he trusted the silence. And now maybe it's your turn. Maybe Allah is calling you to be quiet, not because He wants you to suffer, but because He wants to surprise you. He wants your miracle to arrive in such a way that when it does, you'll know it wasn't your voice, or your effort, or your pushing that brought it. It was Him, completely, perfectly, silently. And maybe that's why it's so hard right now. Because Allah wants you to detach from the idea that you need to explain yourself, defend yourself, prove yourself. You don't. He sees. He knows. He is Al-Basir and Al-Khabir, the all-seeing, the all-aware. Sometimes Allah makes you quiet because the thing He's preparing is so beautiful, so specific, that your words would only limit it. You'd pray for something too small, aim for something too soon, or describe something too shallow. So instead, He keeps you still until what He has for you is ready to be revealed. And in that waiting, He protects you from yourself, from others, from timing that isn't ripe yet, because He loves you more than you love your own plans. And while you sit in that silence, something else happens. Your inner world begins to change. You stop depending on the noise to feel alive. You start listening to your heart, watching your thoughts, correcting your intentions. The silence becomes a mirror. And in that mirror you see yourself, honestly, clearly. Sometimes for the first time. That's when the real growth begins. Because that's when the heart opens itself to something bigger than relief. It opens to transformation. So no, your silence is not a void. It's not a punishment. It's a sacred pause in the middle of your story, where Allah rewrites what you thought was broken, redirects what you thought was lost, and prepares what you never thought to ask for. And maybe this isn't a delay after all. Maybe this is divine pacing, measured, perfect, full of rahmah. And maybe the best thing you can do right now is stop trying to rush it and just to whisper in your heart, Ya Allah, I trust what you're doing, even if I can't hear it yet. There's a moment in every believer's journey where they're forced to face a difficult truth. Not everything needs to be said. Not every hurt needs to be voiced. Not every fear needs to be given volume. Because sometimes your silence is your shield. Your restraint is your reply. Your quiet is the very language Allah wants you to speak in that moment. And when you learn to live with that, when you stop treating stillness like punishment and start treating it like worship, you begin to understand that your silence can be your greatest strength. In that space of silence, the soul either complains or it submits. And what defines the believer is not whether they feel pain, because we all do, but how they respond to it when no one's looking, when the doors are closed, when the heart aches and the lips remain closed out of love and reverence for the one who sees the unseen. That is not weakness. That is power. That is what the Prophet meant when he said, "Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should speak good or remain silent." It wasn't just about manners. It was about mastery. Mastery over the nafs, mastery over impulsive words, mastery over the need to always be heard. We live in an age of noise. Social media, endless opinions, viral emotions, instant reactions. But the believer is trained to pause, to consider, to return to Allah before returning to people, because they know not everyone deserves access to your emotions. Not every listener deserves your story. And not every moment of pain needs to be explained when Allah is already managing your affairs with more mercy than you could ever imagine. And what happens in that silence is remarkable. You begin to purify your intention. You start realizing that speaking is not always the solution. Sometimes it's a test. Sometimes it's a trap. And sometimes it's just noise, delaying what would have come to you had you stayed still just a little longer. So Allah teaches you. He trains you in patience. He refines your heart with silence. And in doing so, He draws you closer to Him. Because now you're listening more than you're reacting, absorbing more than you're expressing, trusting more than you're questioning. This is where you grow. This is where your faith deepens. In the quiet, behind the curtain, far from the applause, far from the chaos. It's just you and Allah. And that's all you need. Because once you learn to be silent in front of creation and loud only in front of your Creator, you'll find a peace that can't be taken and a strength that doesn't need to be spoken. Keep going. You're nearly there. There comes a time when everything you've tried has led to nothing. When all your words have fallen flat. When your du'as seem to echo back in silence. When even your hope feels like it's running thin. But what you may not realize is that this is the exact moment Allah loves to meet you. Not in your noise, but in your surrender. Not in your arguments, but in your stillness. Because there's something about a heart that falls silent, not out of defeat, but out of complete reliance, that attracts divine mercy in the most unexpected ways. You've asked, you've cried, you've been patient, and maybe now Allah is telling you, enough. You don't need to speak anymore. It's already done. But because you haven't seen the result yet, you keep trying to reopen what Allah has already resolved. You keep trying to understand what was only meant to be trusted. And in doing that, you rob yourself of the peace that comes with knowing your Lord hasn't forgotten you. Not for a moment. It's easy to think nothing is happening when the world goes quiet. But Allah's system is not built on appearances. His help doesn't always come wrapped in lightning and thunder. Sometimes it comes in small, quiet moments that you only recognize once the storm has passed. And that's why you're being asked to be silent now. Because the preparation is still underway. The delivery is in motion. But your trust must remain undisturbed. Because the only thing louder than your voice is your sincerity. And sincerity speaks without sound. The believer who masters silence is not someone who knows less. They simply understand more. They've been broken before and seen how Allah put the pieces back together in a way that made them stronger. They've tasted delay and realized it was never denial. They've walked through disappointment only to discover it was divine redirection. And so now, they've learned to stay still. To let Allah finish the story without trying to edit every sentence. And maybe that's what your silence is about right now. Letting go of control. Letting go of the need to see, to hear, to calculate. Instead, resting in the reality that your miracle might not need your words, only your presence, only your patience, only your surrender. So stop trying to explain it. Stop trying to rush it. Stop trying to make sense of what Allah has already perfected. You're not late. You're not being ignored. You're being shaped in the quiet. And the same way Allah sent relief to every prophet after the silence, He will send yours too, at the right time, in the right way. And it will make sense in a way that words never could. Just keep sitting with Him in the silence. That's where everything begins.